In a land shrouded in mystery, there is an abbey, and within there is a prince, Prince Prospero. He gathered his friends from every part of the land and housed them in his great castle. His eccentric tastes and seeming madness combined with his great wealth to form a sanctuary of luxury and pleasure. There were buffoons, there were actors, there were musicians, there was beauty, there was wine. All these in security were within. Without was the Red Death. While the rich and prosperous lived lavishly within, the Red Death raged outside those stone walls. Having long devastated the country, the Red Death ravaged the poor and the weak alike. Blood was its avatar and its seal, the redness and horror of blood. The scarlet stains upon the body, and especially upon the face of the victim, were the signs which shut him out from the sympathy of his fellow men. As the poor died in droves outside, wine and food flowed freely among the guests in the castle. To these inside, the outside world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think, and so they locked and bolted the iron gates, and none could leave or enter to keep the Red Death at bay. 6 months into their isolation, Prince Prospero threw a grand masquerade. The guests dressed in phantasmal costumes. There were much of the beautiful, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. To and fro in the 7 chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams. And these 7 rooms themselves were even more fantastical than the costumes. Each room was ornamented in a different color, its only light shining from a single giant window that was colored the same as the room. The easternmost room was blue. Moving to the west was purple. Green. Orange. White. And violet. And the last and westernmost room was sheathed in black. However, in this room, the window was not black as the walls were. Instead, it shone blood red. No living beings graced this room, for the atmosphere oppressed all who entered. It was in this apartment also that there stood against the western wall a giant clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a heavy, dull clang, and when the hour was to be stricken, there came a sound which was clear and loud, but so peculiar that at each lapse of an hour the musicians paused, the dancers ceased their movements, the giddiest grew pale, and the whole company grew silent as the dead. And so one night, during the revelries, a mysterious guest appeared within the room. All eyes turned toward the mysterious figure, which was dressed in the garments of the grave. He was tall and gaunt, and wore a mask which mimicked the face of a corpse killed by the Red Death. He was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow was besprinkled with a scarlet horror.
Who dares insult us with this mockery? Seize and unmask him so that we may know whom to hang at sunrise.
With these cries, Prospero ran at the masked figure. From the blue to the black, he chased the figure through all of the colored rooms. When at last they stopped in that last room, the masked figure turned and faced his pursuer, the prince. The dagger fell from the prince's hand, and he soon followed, lying dead at the figure's feet. A sharp cry rose among the guests, and they surged at the masked figure, pulling off his mask and garments. They gasped in horror as his disguise lifted away to reveal nothingness beneath. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one the revelers fell in the blood-soaked halls of their festivities. And darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.